the end of the year, I can promise you this will be a football team that the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana will be very, very proud of. Thank you very much.
The Jim Mora Show with your host, Larry Matson.
Thank you, and hello again, everyone. Welcome to this final Jim Mora Show for this season. Well, as you know, the Saints finished 12-4 during the year, 9 straight wins during the regular season, losing to Minnesota in a playoff game. Jim Mora will be along shortly to look back over that '87 season, the best ever in Saints history. A season that produced the NFL Coach of the Year, 5 Pro Bowl players, and more importantly, a playoff berth and hope for '88. We'll be right back with the Jim Mora Show right after this. The season into 2 halves, so let's take a look at the highlights of the first half of the 1987 season.
The Saints opened the 1987 season hosting the defending AFC Central Division champion Cleveland Browns. The date, September 13th in the Dome. Bobby Hebert edged Dave Wilson for the starting quarterback position after a 3-1 preseason, with both performing well. Hebert hit 13 of 22 passes for 149 yards, but it was Reuben Mays and his rushing for 147 yards that caught most everyone's attention. Tight end Hobie Brenner scored twice with 5 catches. And the Saints defense set a record with 2 sacks for safeties in a 28-21 victory. Week 2 had New Orleans traveling to Philadelphia with a strike deadline looming. The Saints had never been 2-0 to start a season, and they wouldn't be in '87, losing to the Eagles 27-17 in a city where Jim Mora's teams once dominated the USFL. The Saints had led 10-0 in the first quarter, but Reuben Mays was held to just 20 yards in 13 carries, as the Saints converted only 2 of 15 third downs. Defensively, however, a trend began in this game that continued throughout the season. Vaughn Johnson had 11 tackles, Ricky Jackson 10 and a sack, and Pat Swilling a sack in the loss. Week 3 was canceled due to a strike, leaving an empty Superdome and some disgusted fans.
I'm going to turn them all in. Y'all want to strike? I'm going to strike.
Game 3 was played with replacement players as Union veterans picketed outside the Dome. 15 players on the roster had Saints camp experience, and that may have been a major factor as the Saints beat the Rams 37-10 with 30,000 vocal fans attending. New records were set with Mike Waters taking in a John Fourcade pass for 82 yards for a score, breaking the Kilmer to Abramowitz catch made in 1967, and the Saints improved to 2-1. The strike continued another week as the Saints traveled to St. Louis looking to grab the lead in the NFC West. Dwight Beverly tied a record by rushing 35 times as the offense gained 368 yards with 30 first downs. The defense allowed a team record 4 net yards passing, but the special teams gave up 17 points, and the Saints lost 24-19 to slip to 2-2. Game 5 was played in Soldier Field, Chicago, again with replacement players while veterans continued walking picket lines. The special teams made a complete turnaround with 2 block punts, and John Fourcade displayed the gutty, tough competitor image he was known for at Ole Miss. The Saints improved to 3-2, overcoming a 17-3 deficit and winning 19-17 with 4 Florian Kemp field goals. Game 6 marked the return of the Union Strikers, with the Saints hosting the San Francisco 49ers. This game marked the now famous "No more woulda, coulda, shoulda" speech that Jim Mora made to the media following the 24-22 loss to the Niners. Morton Anderson kicked 5 field goals. The first was his 100th in the NFL and officially made him the all-time efficiency leader in the league. But it was his miss from 52 with 7 seconds left that left Saints fans saying, "We coulda, we shoulda," etc. Game 7 and the Saints start a 3-game road swing through the NFC West, beginning with the Atlanta Falcons. And little did we know the beginning of a 9-game winning streak and the best in the NFL in '87. The defense came up with 5 interceptions by 5 different backs. Reuben Mays ran for 112 yards. Dalton Hilliard ran for 63 more and 2 touchdowns as the Saints rolled up 410 net yards and dominated time of possession in a 38-0 victory. Game 8, normally the halfway mark in the season, found the Saints at 4-3 and facing the Rams in Anaheim in a critical NFC West contest. The Rams had traded All-Pro running back Eric Dickerson, but still had former Heisman winner Charles White. And the Saints had Dalton Hilliard, who accounted for 45% of the total offensive production. Hilliard was brilliant, rushing for 92 yards, catching 4 passes for 84, including a 38-yard touchdown, and throwing a touchdown pass to John Tice. The Saints improved to 5-3 with a 31-14 win in the Big A over L.A.
Well, Jim Mora is back from San Francisco, back with being with Brent Musburger at halftime with a big playoff game out there, and back to being on the show for the final time in 87-88 for right now.
Well, it's good to be back, Larry. I had a good trip out there, but it's always nice to get back to New Orleans.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. I guess you got the experience working with me now, and you were ready for Brent Musburger.
Well, that was kind of a letdown after working with you, you know.
It was, I guess, an inauspicious start for the 88 or 87 season. Here we are in 88, but looking at that playoff game with the Vikings out there in San Francisco, did that make you feel any better at all at the fact that the Vikings played so well and showed that it wasn't just a big weekend for them when they beat the Saints, that they did knock off the best team?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we knew going into our game that they were a good football team, very talented football team, and I knew before the game against San Francisco that they were going to play well. I picked San Francisco to win the football game, but I thought it would be a close game, and it didn't surprise me that Minnesota won. It surprised me a little bit that they won so easily and that they dominated so much, but it just indicates to me again how talented I think they are and what a good football team I think they are.
Looking back at the first half highlights that we've just seen, it wasn't a great start. It was an even mediocre start. At one point in the season, you said, we're not good enough to be a playoff team. We're not good enough to beat people like San Francisco. And I think when you came out and talked to the media, that was the woulda, coulda, shoulda speech. And things did change, as we'll see in the second half. But at that point, you really felt that this team had a long way to go.
Well, I didn't think they had a long way to go. I felt like we had a ways to go, though, which we did at that point. I mean, we were 3-3 when I said that, and we'd lost to San Francisco, and we'd lost to Cleveland, or not to Cleveland, but to Philadelphia with our non-strike group with the regular guys. So, and we'd beaten one team. We'd beaten the Browns, which was a good football team. But people had said things like, well, you know, we were close. Well, if this would have happened, this woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff, and some people had been asking me questions about, is this a playoff caliber team? And the thing that bothered me so much is that they're talking about a team that had never had a winning year in 20 years, and all of a sudden they're saying, well, are you a playoff team? That kind of stuff. No way yet. You know, you don't get these things. You can't be considered this kind of a team until you prove that you are, which we eventually did.
All right, and we'll be taking a look at that eventually did in just a moment, right after this. And there was 3 consecutive road games on the road at NFC West teams. Do you have any say in the scheduling at all? In other words, next year, this 88 season, you've got 4 West Coast trips. Could be back-to-back.
Hopefully we don't get back-to-back trips out to the West Coast, but there's a chance that we could, and I have absolutely nothing to say about it, nor does anybody in our organization. It's all done by the league office regarding stadium availability and all those kind of things.
All right, let's take a look now at the second half of the season, the 9 straight winning games and a playoff berth at the end.
Week 9 of the season found the Saints traveling to San Francisco for a critical rematch with the 49ers. A victory would put the Saints within 1 game of the NFC West lead. Perhaps the play of the game took place in the 3rd quarter when rookie Reggie Sutton blocked Ray Wersching's field goal attempt and Johnny Poe scooped it up and raced 61 yards for the score. Morton Anderson kicked a 40-yard field goal into the wind with 1:06 left to give the Saints a hard-fought 26-24 win and improve their record to 6-3 and their best ever division record of 4-1. Jim Mora conceded for the first time that his team was a contender. Week 10 had the Saints back home after 3 consecutive road games, but the opponent was the defending Super Bowl champion New York Giants. Big plays were becoming a Saints trademark, and against the Giants, the Saints picked off 5 interceptions, recorded 5 quarterback sacks, and blocked a punt. Johnny Poe blocked it. Gene Atkins recovered it, and the Saints beat New York 23-14. The win was the 4th in a row and put the Saints at 7-3, needing one win to assure their first winning season ever. Game 11, Three River Stadium, Pittsburgh. The Steelers in the hunt for a divisional title. The Saints one game behind San Francisco and looking for the history-making win. 2 goal line stands by the Saints defense highlighted the stirring 20-16 heart-thumping victory and improved their record to 8-3 by extending their winning streak to 5. With 10 seconds remaining in the game, the Steelers faced a 1st and goal at the 3, and Pat Swilling broke through to sack Mark Malone. Dave Waymer's interception on the next play ended it and preserved the victory. No Saints team had ever won 9 games in a season. To accomplish that in Week 12, the Saints would have to beat a stubborn Tampa Bay team starting rookie Vinny Testaverde at quarterback. The Saints defense quickly recovered 2 early Testaverde fumbles to get the offense off to a 14-0 start. Bobby Hebert had his best day as a Saint with 255 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, hitting 9 different receivers. Mel Gray returned a punt 80 yards to set a team record as the Saints set a team standard with 6 straight wins and a 9-3 record. This win also assured the Saints of their first playoff berth. Week 13, the Saints hosted the Houston Oilers, knowing they were in the playoffs, but also knowing the NFC West divisional title was still within reach. Michael Adams blocked a punt, the 8th for the Saints special teams in '87. Bobby Hebert tossed 3 touchdown passes, 2 of them to Eric Martin, and Dalton Hilliard rushed for 93 yards in leading the Saints to their 7th straight win and 10th of the season. Week 14 found the Saints on the road in Riverfront Stadium, Cincinnati, on a dark, overcast day. Bobby Hebert re-injured his right knee as the Saints found themselves down by 21 points before halftime. Dave Wilson completed 9 of 15 passes for 160 yards as he guided the black and gold back to victory in their best comeback ever. The victory, 41-24, extended their win streak to 8 and improved their record to 11-3. The final week of the regular season, Game 15, and the NFC West crown still possible as the Saints hosted Green Bay. The Packers jumped out to a quick 14-3 lead, but the Saints came right back when Dalton Hilliard weaved his way 74 yards with this kickoff return, helping set up the go-ahead touchdown. Ricky Jackson led the defense with 11 tackles, while Sam Mills and Bruce Clark recovered fumbles. The win, 33-24, was a record 9th in a row and had the Saints at 12-3, second best record in the NFL, just a game behind San Francisco. The wild card playoff game, the first ever in Saints history and the first ever in the Superdome. The Minnesota Vikings traveled south with an 8-7 record, but 3 of those losses took place during the replacement games. The Saints kicked off and quickly took command with a sack and a fumble recovery on the first 2 plays of the game. But an 84-yard punt return by Anthony Carter gave the Vikings a 10-3 lead as they went on to win 44-10 and advance to the divisional round against San Francisco. The Saints finished 12-4 for the year and had fans already looking toward the '88 season.
Welcome back to the show, and welcome back with Jim Mora. Do any of the wins stand out as the biggest? The 8th was a winning season. The 9th was the first ever for a Saints team. Do they stand out? Or?
Oh yeah, those stand out, Larry, a lot. They're all important games, and you know, just the first one after losing to San Francisco here, the one that started the streak, San Francisco, then going out Atlanta, and then going out and beating LA. But I think if I had to pick 2 successive weeks, it was beating San Francisco, and then coming back home and beating the defending world champion Giants here. I felt like those 2 wins were probably the big wins or the key wins of the streak.
Gave you the confidence to know you can beat the best.
Right.
And the players believed that. The coaching staff, I think, always believed it, but sometimes they don't always go together, and now at that point you had both the coaches and the players believing it.
Right.
together.
Our guys really felt like they could play with anybody and beat anybody, and that confidence thing is so important. You know, what you feel upstairs is so important, and this team needed confidence. This organization needs confidence.
Now, Tom Benson had told Bob Costas on national TV he predicted the team would go 12-3, and this was at a point, I don't know, maybe it was a 6-3 year at that point, and he was predicting that. Of course, an owner feels that way all the time, but as coaching, as coaches on your coaching staff, each one just went out 1 week at a time. You were able to keep a pretty level-headed approach each week and zero in on that particular week. You didn't let the players look ahead 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead.
Well, this is something I believe in. I don't think you can do that in this league, because if you do, you're going to get knocked off some week, because anybody can do it to you. Everybody's got good players, and they work hard, and they have good coaches. So I've tried to sell that approach to our football team. It's something I believe in. It's something I think is essential to having a good football team, and they did a good job of it. Our players did a good job of it.
Personally, you've won the Coach of the Year now in the USFL and the NFL. That had to be somewhat gratifying, even though you did lose in the playoffs. You made it to the playoffs. You did have a great year looking back at it now, and I know personally you don't look at awards and presentations and all that sort of thing, but you had to feel pretty good that you had won that award.
It's a nice award, and I'm happy that I was able to win it. It's a reflection on the whole organization, because a lot of people go into had contributed to the success that our football team had this year, and that's what got me that award, because we won a lot of games and got into the playoffs. But you have to, I wish I could share it with our players and our coaching staff, because they're the ones that did such a super job.
All right, we'll be back with more on the Jim Mora Show right after this.
I predicted at the beginning of the season that we were going to have a winning season, that we were going to, this was the year of history.
We couldn't possibly show you everything we did during those 24 shows, but we do have a brief look back of the Jim Mora Show 87.
It has been an interesting year for the crew of the Jim Mora Show, beginning with the special Draft Day show last spring, taped before a live studio audience. We traveled to Portland, Oregon during the summer to attend the Brock Brothers football camp. It was there we featured the camp and the 5 Brock brothers for the Jim Mora Show. During the season, we attended every Saints game, home and away, to bring the inside story home to our audience. During Thanksgiving, we visited Tom Benson and his family on his Texas ranch outside San Antonio to learn more about the Saints owner, away from the office and away from the chaos of the Superdome. Last week, we had huddles draw out our Super Bowl trip for 2 winner out of 2,500 cards sent in during the season. Then we went to Marrero, to the home of Anna Mae Mitchell, to present her with Saints souvenirs and the grand prize.
Tell us what happened when you heard your name read on the air that you had just won the trip.
Truthfully,
Truthfully.
when they said Anna, I listened, and I had just told my son I didn't want to win it because the Saints weren't playing in it. And then by the time they got to Mitchell, well, then I just went into hysterics. I started laughing, really.
You can win on the Jim Mora Show then.
Yes, you can. Made a believer of me.
And it was a real treat to be there with Anna Mae, and she really is a Saints fan. That Saints fever is really caught on. Winning brings the best out of everybody, I guess.
Well, I wish I could tell Anna, for Anna Mae's sake and our sake, I wish she could come out there and watch us play in that game.
That would be great. It would. You're going to be coaching in the Senior Bowl in Mobile. This gives you an opportunity to really get firsthand knowledge of a lot of outstanding college players.
Yeah, you get to see them on the field, you get to work with them, plus you get to see them off the field too, so it gives you a real thorough idea of what kind of people they are and what kind of players they are. We're looking forward to it, Larry.
Your whole staff will be there as the coach for the South team.
Right. We'll coach the South team, the Seahawks coach the North team.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that, and we'll look forward to seeing you in just a moment, because we've got more to come on the Jim Mora Show right after this. Last year, I asked you if your staff had learned a lot being in the NFL for the first year. Now, you've got 2 years under your belt and a playoff. Is there more pressure to win now that you have one?
Oh, I think so. Everybody will be expecting more from our football team next year than they did, of course, this year. And we'll be expecting more from ourselves, our players and our coaching staff. So there will be more pressure, although there's always pressure.
The fans were very much behind you this year, and I'm sure they'll be behind you again next year. And doggone it, the opening game of preseason will be the Minnesota Vikings.
That's right. We can't shake these guys, Larry. We end up with them, and we start out with them just like last year. You know, we ended up with them in '86. We started out with them with the preseason in '87, and we're doing the same thing again. So hopefully they'll win the Super Bowl, and we'll get a chance to play the Super Bowl champions.
All right, well, good luck to you, and I certainly have enjoyed working with you again this year.
It's been a real pleasure for me also.
We hope to have all of you back next year right here on the Jim Mora Show. And as we close out, I want you to take a look at some of the people we caught with our camera that are behind the scenes, some of the people you have seen on the show, some of the people you haven't seen on the show, but they've all contributed in some way to this great 1987 New Orleans Saints football team.
WGNO.